and welcome to AJC Partners with myself, Sonja. I'm the head of operations, and I'm here with Alan Jones, our head of lean. Hi, Alan.
Hello. Hi.
And we're going to talk you through our performance culture accelerator model today. So there are 4 key elements really to creating a high-performing organizations. And we believe all clusters in this model to be of equal importance, which means that any change you might be driving in your organization will require for you to give some attention to each of these clusters. The first cluster is purpose. So this is where your strategy sits. It's why are we here? What are we trying to achieve? It's your roadmaps and your business cases. The next cluster is around planning, and that can range from planning a change activity through planning your capacity and capability, planning your operation, and we recommend here to be as agile as possible. We'll get to that in a little bit more detail later. The third one, of course, you can't be a lean and improvement agency without talking about process. The process cluster really looks at the end-to-end value stream and improvements that in that. So we're looking at lean processes. How can we integrate the process at the pull of the customer? How do we make it flow? Those type of topics. And then lastly, and probably the most neglected cluster a lot of the time in change activities is people. If we don't bring our people on board, if our people aren't clear on the purpose, on the plan, how the process operates, there's a high likeliness of our change to fail. So if we want to accelerate our performance as an organization, it's absolutely critical to pay attention to all 4 clusters: purpose, planning, the process, and our people.
Yeah, the origins of this model are based on our experience, if you like, of what stops us making successful interventions with clients. And we developed the model, and then we were cast around, well, what do we call it? And we realized that what we're really creating here with this model is trying to understand through the model is the culture of high performance. And we've applied this model in one notable scenario where we only worked on people because all the others were in place, and whoosh, the organization took off. So it is about getting the culture right and allowing everything else to run at an optimized level. And clearly you can have the right culture and other things don't work, but it's putting it all together so that everyone buys into what's going to happen. And the 4 elements together really are important to getting the culture right. We'll probably spend more time talking about that as we go through the detail, but let's go into the detail of each one now. So the first one, purpose, strategy design. I suppose the simplest way of designing strategy is for the owners or the leaders of the business to say, why are we here? What do we want to achieve? And as you start to answer those questions, you start to get towards what is growth going to look like? Where is it going to come from? And this also engages people then in quite interesting conversations. Some growth might be coming from, I know, completely new products. Other growth might be coming from products that already exist, and there are various models to separate that out. But until you start to have those conversations, people might be working to what they believe is right and going in completely different directions to their colleagues. And this creates tension, obviously. So having these conversations brings it down to a level where you can sensibly debate the best direction for the organization. And then you've got to deploy it into you've got to deploy those decisions into the organization through strategy deployment, so that everybody knows what their role is in achieving or contributing towards the strategy of the organization.
And this is the most straightforward acid test to see how well your purpose is really clear to your team and how well deployed it is in the organization. Does everybody know why they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing it for? If not, you probably want to revisit your purpose cluster.
Yes. And the idea of having values in the organization, I think that informs a great deal about the culture of the organization. And as I say, we'll come on to talk more about that as we go through this. So the next one, planning. Planning here is used as really an overarching term, giving everyone in the organization the knowledge of where they should be. Many companies I work with want to achieve a level of productivity, but that is not planned into the organization. So whether it is achieved often turns out to be a matter of hit and miss. And whether it is sustained is even greater levels of uncertainty into it. And then, of course, we want to plan the capacity of our capability, as it's been introduced to me in the past as a kappa planning. So do we have the right skills to the right quantities in the organization? Have we even thought about what skills we need?
And this is interesting, where you can already see the linkages between the clusters. They don't just go in a circle; they are linked in every area. You can't plan your operation fully efficiently without planning your capability. So there's always this element of linking all the different clusters together. And capability planning is something that is discussed widely in the HR community, but often doesn't get much further than a skills matrix and some e-learning.
Yeah. And the effects you see of this in organizations are quite telling. They might have a number of different improvement projects going on, but guess what? It's the same people in all of those improvement projects. Why is that? Because they're the only ones deemed to have the capability to drive improvement projects. So there's a classic skills shortage, but projects are not the main occupation of the company. So no one ever thinks of going out and getting those skills. Again, having those conversations leads to some interesting solutions. And the idea of being agile and flexible is also quite critical. I mean, if we're in the shipbuilding industry, it doesn't need the same level of agility that it does if we're in a fast-moving consumer goods organization, where we're adjusting things every hour to reflect what's coming through on the order pipelines. But as long as you carry on.
I do believe, however, that today, the more flexible you can be and the more agile you can be, that's typically beneficial to any organization, and especially to your way of solving problems. Flexibility and agility always require one thing, which is good communication and good conversation. And that is the cornerstone, the foundation of good problem solving.
Yeah. And what's absolutely certain in the marketplace, regardless of which marketplace you're in, whether it's shipbuilding or consumer goods, it's not going to get slower. It is going to get faster. And the ability to grapple with the speed of the marketplace and respond to that is critical. Okay. Next one, process. So, we've all talked about lean processes. We all can see lean processes when we see them maybe in other organizations. They're always a bit more difficult to see in our own organization because we understand all of the detail that goes behind it and stops it being lean. But lean processes, taking waste out, it's still a fundamental part of good operations and having a high performing organization.
And the other element, of course, is digitalization. This is something that has taken up pace over the last few years and is only going to grow. So how can you lean your system workflows? How do you create systems that deliver on the requirements of your unique process? Or how do you take your systems and make them deliver on that?
Yes, and what we're seeing more and more is that the combination of good, solid, typically shop floor, but process improvement activities, backed up by integrated digitalization, not only does it provide the advantages that you need in terms of data availability at point of use, but it also has a significant effect on sustainability because you have the IT systems, the digital systems, which are able to guide the behavior of the individual. It doesn't replace the need for good behavior, but it can guide the behavior. This is something that is becoming more and more critical to delivering sustainable success in terms of streamlining processes.
But then, on the other hand, the things that always have been critical remain just as critical. And here we're looking at going back to first principles, bring in the customer value, what adds value to the customer. The first principle of lean is probably more important than ever in this new digitalized work, just as much as it is to not just look at your little silo, but understand the end-to-end value stream and deliver customer value alongside it.
Yeah. Make sure the whole value stream is orientated towards customer value. Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about behavior there, but let's go back to where it is front and center, which is in the people box. Sonja, this is more your area of expertise.
I suppose so. What we talked about so far is what we call physical management or visual management, maybe partially through the system workflows and the plans, but really the way we shape our culture and how we accelerate is through the acoustic management in our organization and of our team. So what do we mean by that? It's the way we talk to each other. It's the way we hold meetings. It's the way we set up our communication structures. It's about how engaging are we? How much are we focused on empowerment? Now, these are all buzzwords that have been floating around for a long time. But how do you actually make them a reality in your organization? How do you become people-centric? How do you get your team to want to drive your purpose through their planning into your processes? And all of that is in the way, first and foremost, in the way we communicate and talk to each other, which is why we are typically applying the sound wave model of 9 voices into pretty much any intervention we do. Because what we have learned over many years of delivering change is change typically doesn't fail on the content. It fails in the culture.
Yeah.
So you need to create the culture you want alongside your change.
Yeah, it's time and again we are confronted with change, and it works when good people are involved in the change. It doesn't work when ordinary people are involved in the change. So how do we make the change and the capability of ordinary people compatible? Well, that's by helping ordinary people to become extraordinary, learning about how they speak, learning about engagement and empowerment, and turning it into a set of behaviors and norms for them that are relatively easy to understand. It's an extremely powerful element of the model. It is absolutely one of the four cornerstones of any successful intervention, and it cannot be overemphasized in my belief. And this is coming from a metalhead engineer. Yeah, it cannot be overemphasized. So anyway, to summarize, what we've got here is a model which allows us to assess the culture, the performance culture of the organization. It's applicable in almost every area where we've taken it. We've not come across an area where it's not applicable. And it provides a nice, easy to understand, easy to relate to view of a company. But you can also then start to look at the each of the segments separately. I mentioned at the start that we had found a lot of training had occurred in an organization which had not been taken up. When we addressed the people aspect of it, the latent knowledge of the training was immediately employed. So the change was pretty quick there.
It turns really quickly into a roadmap if you take it cluster by cluster. So that's, I think, the biggest benefit of this model.
Yes, it's something that is quick and easy to apply. It provides meaningful data and allows you to get started on your improvement journey extremely quickly. And I would say we recommend this to every company.
That's right. So if you want to learn more about the model, or if you want to talk to us about your specific organization and your purpose planning process and people, head over to our contacts page, and we're looking forward to talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.